This PowerPoint is on intelligence, defining intelligence, which is part of Chapter 7. A quote that I really like related to intelligence is, "There are no great limits to growth because there are no limits of human intelligence, imagination, and wonder." So we're unlimited when it comes to those things, which is a nice positive thought. Defining intelligence is a difficult and multifaceted task, but let's look at some ideas and we'll try and get through those together. But I wanted to acknowledge that it is a really difficult concept to define, but let's look at a few things. Let's look at crystallized intelligence. This is the knowledge and skills that an individual acquires through experience and education, which can be shaped by specific environmental factors encountered over a lifetime. It reflects the ability to use learned information and experiences to solve problems and make decisions. For example, the information you memorize for a test would be crystallized intelligence. It's just, again, the knowledge and skills that you've gained through time, things that you know. Again, just like information you memorize, that's just knowledge you've gained and then you know it. Fluid intelligence, on the other hand, is the ability to see complex relationships and solve problems. Fluid intelligence helps you tackle complex, abstract challenges in your daily life, whereas crystallized intelligence helps you overcome concrete, straightforward problems. So an example would be completing puzzles. Um, a puzzle is a problem you haven't been presented with before. You didn't study previously how to solve this puzzle. It's a totally new experience. So completing puzzles, solving a mystery, those are things that require fluid intelligence. So let's look at the diagram, which again shows the difference between fluid and crystallized intelligence. Fluid intelligence, the global capacity to reason, to make sense of things, the ability to learn new things that you haven't been presented with before, and to be able to think abstractly, think outside the box, and solve problems. Whereas crystallized intelligence is things you've learned before. Past learning and past experiences have taught you. It's based on facts. Again, memorizing for a test, you tend to just memorize facts. And it increases with age, obviously, because the older you get, the more experiences you've had, the more you've learned, and so crystallized intelligence grows and grows. So let's look at the triarchic theory of intelligence, which includes three types of intelligence. Practical intelligence, which would be street smarts and common sense. So let's look at practical intelligence first. The definition: practical abilities are those needed to utilize, implement, and apply problem-solving processes to concrete and relatively familiar everyday problems. Practical students are motivated by and appreciative of knowledge they can take with them when they leave the classroom. So again, it's practical knowledge, common sense, street smarts, and of course we all really appreciate having that knowledge because that's what helps us solve everyday problems. An example would be project-based learning. Students create a mock city council proposal considering real-world constraints like budget and local demographics. Again, a very just useful knowledge to have about a practical problem. And real-world math problems. Students use a budget and a list of supplies to plan a school event balancing costs and priorities. So just the word practical, just very practical knowledge is the theory of practical intelligence. Let's look at analytical intelligence, which is part of the triarchic theory. This is your ability to solve problems and employ logical reasoning to analyze a situation, break down the data, and draw conclusions based on evidence. An example of this would be planning a trip. You have to break down the route, the place you'll stay, the activities you'll do. So in differing from practical intelligence is you have to use reasoning. You have to analyze the situation in a way. You have to think outside the box, to break things down. And then thirdly, we have creative intelligence, which is marked by inventing or imagining a solution to a problem or situation. Creativity in this realm can include finding a novel or new solution to an unexpected problem. An example of this would be a new invention. Anyone that creates something is creative intelligence. Or organizing a closet so everything fits would also be more of a real world example, of creative intelligence. So it's finding a new solution, something that you haven't thought of before. Again, thinking outside the box of new ideas. So let's look at this again, just in the form of a diagram. Sometimes that makes it easier to understand things. Again, practical intelligence is the ability to read and adapt to everyday life, just those practical things, that common sense. Analytical intelligence is mental steps or components used to solve problems. Goes one step beyond practical intelligence, and you have to go through steps and solve problems. Creative intelligence, the use of experiences in ways that foster insight or create new ideas, fosters new insight, new ideas. So that's the triarchic theory of intelligence. Beyond the triarchic theory, there's a theory of multiple intelligences, which was developed by Howard Gardner. His multiple intelligence included music. Some people have music smarts. Kinesthetic, which would be considered an athlete, they have body smarts. Interpersonal, which you're very people smart. You kind of an emotionally intelligent aspect where you're able to read people and know people. Linguistic would be word smart. Linguistic, similar to the word language. Mathematical, kind of self-explanatory, would be smart in logics and math. Naturalistic would be being nature smart. Intrapersonal, as opposed to interpersonal. Intrapersonal is being smart about yourself, monitoring your own emotions and reactions. And visual would be like being picture smart. Your visual senses are very good. I mentioned emotional intelligence in the last slide as an aspect really of interpersonal and intrapersonal intelligence. But let's define it here. It encompasses the ability to understand the emotions of yourself and others, show empathy, understand social relationships and cues, and regulate your own emotions and respond in culturally appropriate ways. For example, active listening would be an example of emotional intelligence. Active listening, if you're not familiar with that term, is listening to someone and being able to truly listen and also being able to actively listen. In other words, you repeat back to them what they said, so you're better able to understand it and get a full understanding of that person. Or staying calm in a difficult situation. That would be the ability of regulating your emotions. You're able to stay calm and not just automatically react with anger or fear. The little diagram on the left, emotional intelligence, again includes being able to manage your emotions, understand what you're feeling, use your emotions appropriately, and perceive other people's emotions. Let's look at the concept of cultural intelligence, which refers to the ability to effectively understand, adapt, and work in different cultural contexts. It goes beyond basic cultural awareness by focusing on how individuals navigate and succeed in culturally diverse environments. Cultural intelligence includes skills in perceiving cultural differences, adjusting your behavior, and making decisions that consider cultural nuances, which are essential for successful collaboration in globalized settings. As you can imagine, it's essential to be aware of different cultures, be aware of their little nuances, be able to aware of their behavior, and adapt yourself to that. In order for us to be successfully internationally and globally, we have to be able to understand each other. So that's it for looking at intelligence and defining it a little bit further. As I mentioned at the beginning of the PowerPoint, intelligence can be a difficult concept to define, but hopefully we've done a little bit better with defining it through this PowerPoint. But let me know if you have any questions and we'll look further at that.